This is the emergency broadcast system.
This is not a test. Avoid contact with the infected.
This is not a test.
For me, for Infected was actually a brainchild of mine years ago, before I even met Jon Cooke, and I was fortunate and blessed enough to meet him. But it was really, I had the opportunity and given the opportunity, and fortunately, to be working for a paintball and airsoft park back in the 2000s, and I was a general manager. I worked there for about 10 years. I was a GM for the company. Basically went in and I said, well, you know what? My favorite horror genre is zombies, and so I think I have an idea. Paulina, who is a dear friend of mine, was one of my managers at the time, but I was super close with her, and she's a huge part in this equation. But Paulina was my number one first squad leader, who I felt comfortable enough with sharing my crazy ideas, because she knew I have these crazy ideas, but she somewhat she kept me grounded throughout the years.
Jon Asperin was like, hey, wouldn't it be rad if, and I'm paraphrasing because he never says rad, he said, wouldn't it be rad if we did some kind of zombie maze? Like, zombies are cool and we have paintballs, we could shoot the zombies and make like a little maze out of it, like Knott's does and other places do. And I was like, yeah, I'm so down. And we had literally a handful of refs and a bunch of volunteers to work. And it was only like a 3-night event. And it was beautifully chaotic. And everyone loved it. No one walked out disappointed.
Everyone came out like we never seen such a huge, overwhelming response about this concept that sort of triggered a lot of haunt people. Like, wait a minute, that dude's on to something, that there's something kind of special about this. At the time, they wanted to do a Halloween event, and or they wanted to do like a limited series or a limited haunt run the following year, which they built it around our zombie kill house. And that's sort of how I met Jon, and I didn't know Jon was this crazy rock star. Like, I just knew him as some cool dude that was like a workhorse like me.
But we did what we call the kill house, where you went through and you were shooting the attacking zombies. And then from there, later reconnected with Laura Hanneman at Knott's, and she decided that she wanted to do something similar at Knott's. So I was hired on back in to design Infected, and brought Jon Asperin with me, and that was a project that we got to work on together.
The unique thing about Infected was that it offered something a little bit different, and the inspiration behind it and how it came about really came from this whole idea of fun that you would have that you wouldn't really expect in a haunted house or a haunted attraction. You had video game influences, you had movie influences, you had paintball and airsoft mixed into influences, and just the fortunate chain of events of having so many people be responsible for what Infected is today, from the paintball community to the airsoft community down to the guests, and the people working on the front line, like the squad leaders and the zombies. They help improve this concept, that it just sort of took off. Our platform, our groundwork with Infected started off with this 3-night attraction called the Zombie Kill House at this paintball park. And Paulina and folks like Michael Hernandez and his side, you know, they're these people that are some of our original squad leaders in year one of Infected, actually followed me to Knott, and you know, the rest is history.
First, the initial concept for Infected was supposed to be in the arcade back in the back of Boardwalk, so it was a smaller one. And then from there, they decided they wanted to do it at Soak City, across the street at the water park.
And this is back, I think, in 2012, 2013, you know, when we were just talking about it. And, you know, we were going to have military transport trucks take guests from Scary Farm, from the park, from Knott's Berry Farm, and take them over. And during their transport, that was when we would give them the briefing, the zombie briefing. And one of the cool things about it was that it allowed us to get total immersion, which is where we are at with Scary Farm right now. Our whole goal is to suspend disbelief by total immersion. We ended up landing in our first year's location, which we're super fortunate with. There's so much rich history and lineage behind that. We're fortunate to find our first year over at Camp Snoopy. One of the biggest challenges that we had was just, well, how do you set up this maze? And you have the park operating during the day, and you know, within a few hours or so, you have to transform Camp Snoopy into like a zombie apocalypse. So, you know, we had to be tactful with it. We had to use the existing structures there, and how do we creatively, you know, interject a storyline that will just allow it to make sense. And, you know, one of the biggest issues that we had was, well, how do we actually have to do it? His team and the Bats, they would literally, within 20 or 30 minutes, set up Camp Snoopy into a zombie apocalypse. That's bringing out vehicles, everything out there. Maddie was involved, and the rest of the teams, and man, they were our heartbeat for the first 2 years. Without them, you know, we couldn't have set something up. So we had to be smart about it. You know, we had a lot of stuff that were on rollaways. We had stuff that were stored in different places that would just allow us just to do a quick setup and a quick teardown.
And, you know, it has changed quite a bit from its initial concept in Camp Snoopy, which was more of out on the outskirts of town rescue survival mission, which I thought was fun because you went from station to station, having to solve these tasks, complete missions, help survivors, find the cure for the virus, like all these things. And then the more updated one was the urban setting in the modern day Calico City, where you are once again trying to find the source of the outbreak and neutralize it.
And I think the difference between like year 1 and 2 compared to like years 3 and forward is more people got to experience it. You know, if you're willing to wait a certain amount of time, which is any amusement park attraction, you get to experience it. And I feel with that, like at that point, you went from, because in camp, yes, it felt immersive. You felt like you were in the forest, but there we actually put you into a city. And I feel that we definitely excelled on that point, because it took you, when you looked up, you were still in the environment, if that makes sense. Like when you looked up, you didn't see tarps, you looked up and seen stars, so you actually felt like you were in, you know, Calico City modern day. Watching it develop from like building from paintball to this, unbelievable.
History and the story of Infected began with some biological tests that were being conducted in a remote town, and some of the biomedical and pharmaceutical companies involved in these testing were basically involved in this outbreak that happened, and the small town was basically slowly coming under siege by this outbreak that was happening along this, this wooden city. So in year one was of infected, and this was at Camp Snoopy. Year one was basically to try to complete these missions and to reestablish communication. In year one of infected at Camp Snoopy, we had two trails. We had two routes. We had the Alpha mission and the Bravo mission. Each of those missions, which crossed each other over at Camp Snoopy, had these different missions that, number one, revolved around reestablishing communication, and number two, to try to find any survivors. And so that was the whole goal of Infected, which is why it was called Special Ops Infected. There was missions involved in it, so it was very interactive. Year two now was trying to find the source of the infection, which was patient zero. Here, the team was sent back out over to this location of the outbreak to try to find the source of it, so they could take the source back over to the CDC to synthesize the DNA or whatever they were able to find. So guests actually had to find patient zero in year two, and they had to actually go up to this little room, this little shack that we designed, in which they had to extract a part of patient zero, which was a finger at the time. So these groups of guests had to come in. They had to remove the finger off of patient zero or some sort of body part and carry it with them while shooting off the zombies and take it back to the very end. And so it was still very mission objective. There's a mission objective behind that. With this outbreak that happened in this small town, the CDC got word of it, and as soon as they tried to make contact with them, they tried to send out a team to investigate, because they lost the communication and all sorts of communication to this town, this rural town. And so, as they arrived, they had to reestablish the communication, so then that way that their central command was able to assess the situation. So the next evolution of the storyline was that part of it was really this cleanup crew at the end of year two was sent into the city to clean up patient zero and the zombie apocalypse and try to bring back the community and just try to get things going and get that town moving again. So they sent cleaners in, they sent the CDC in there along with some military support to make sure that there's no traces of any sort of infection or anything like that, or the viral outbreak. And so during the transport, their patient zero remains were being transported back to get synthesized over at the CDC, and the barrel in the transport truck dropped the barrel of patient zero down a stream that got mixed in with the water source. So in the storyline, it progresses into following this outbreak, which was modern day Calico City.
Year one of Mystery Lodge, you're looking for the source of the outbreak. That's why Big Ugly is hidden. So you're trying to find it. Leading into year two, year three, you're starting to find it. You know where it's at. But you need to destroy it. Last year, full blown, we know where it's at. Do not go into the departments, or don't go into the department store. Do not go into the warehouse. Go through the liquor store, go to the freezer, then cut through, and that will take you to the proper sewer that will kill Big Ugly. So that's why the transition of Big Ugly went from hidden to wide open at the very end.
So as the whole idea of the guests coming in through infected, we wanted to make sure that, they understood that, hey, this is just a media blitz, but there's some truth behind it, which they knew, and they got it the minute they stepped into the point of the queue line where the videos were playing. That's when the truth came out. Because then you have me as my true character, not this guy, that was just giving some lip service to the reporter in the video. There's these static transitions where the real me, geared up, is telling the guests what they're really here for. So the minute they get past the queue line and into the pre-show lobby of Mystery Lodge Theater, they got their equipment, they're ready to rock and roll. Squad leaders, the idea of squad leaders came from Airsoft Wednesday War. The idea of 12 o'clock and a 6 o'clock, a point, someone in the point, running point and someone running back, that would guide the group in the middle through this journey. They would come in, gear up, and set up the barricades and push everything down. They'd support our production team, and they're super tired from the night before. And that was one of the most beautiful things about it, because everyone wanted a great show. It wasn't anything selfish, you know, and that kind of sort of happened, that great level of care that the squad leaders took back then. They took that year after year after year to its final year, where, you know, the squad leaders were almost became like the protectors of an event that they wanted themselves. Each of them wanted to succeed, and they would do anything that they could. And it had started really with the first 2 years and continued on. You know, they would set stuff up even to the final years. You know, they were pushing barricades back away and help striking the event for day off. And so, you know, it was a challenge, but I think our general approach to how we designed it and how we built it, we had to keep in mind that it wasn't something that would get in the way of day operation. So.
I had never done it before, and Jason was going to audition, and he said, "Hey, you want to go with me to audition for Not Scary Farm?" I was like, "I'm too old for that." He's like, "No, come on." So we went and went through the process, and the guy asked us, you know, "What do you want to do?" And we said we wanted to be monsters. And he goes, "Yeah, all the monsters are full, but," he goes, "would you be interested in being a squad leader in the zombie apocalypse?" I was like, "Yeah." So he sent me on my way, and I met up with Jon, and Jon said, "Hey, come on over to an audition," and he grabbed Steve, who that ran Carnival, and the two of them sat down, and he told me, you know, "We're two recruits, and I want you to come at us, guns a-blazing, and just be all over us." So I asked if I could curse. He said no. I was like, shoot, okay, hold on. I'm going to really have to think about this. So it took a moment and came at him, and they were like, whoa, 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 whoa. And Jon looked at Steve and go, "Yes?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah." So I was in. And like I said, I didn't have any idea what to expect.
But while everyone's setting up and like finalizing everything in Camp Snoopy, me and Declan went for the rope drop, and that's when Knott's hired, I guess, a helicopter and a helicopter pilot to fly over, and we're just like standing there with our, you know, weapons, looking badass.
Watch my character kind of change over the years. I took my I never wore any damage on my face. There's a certain squad leader, female squad leader that you might know, that used to do that. And I thought, that looks pretty cool. So I started doing that this past year. And people would look at me, "Did you get hurt? Are you infected?" And they thought I was infected because I had a mark on my face. So, but I think it developed over the years, and I feel like each year it got a little better, you know, as far as my character.
So one of the things about being a squad leader in Infected, it has a very military type vibe. It's got a very intense vibe to it. And I don't know if the general public knows this per se. I mean, I thought it was kind of obvious just because I was involved with that, but we had military vets on our staff. Not all of them, but there were a couple sprinkled here and there. And I feel like that just kind of gave it more of a real vibe, a real like intense feeling, because we were able to project what we had learned and use it in a way that made the whole experience feel more immersive and more real. And when you really think about it, like, it is kind of that environment anyways. You want it to be high intensity, you want it to be like a good type of stressful, you want people to walk out of there feeling super motivated. And when you have people that have experienced that in real life, it just makes it more believable as an experience as a whole.
You are a character who is involved in, you know, the immersiveness of the maze. In fact, it's not a normal maze. And as a squad leader, you have, in my opinion, more freedom than the zombies, because you can talk. You are a human character. You know, you do have that ability to interact with the guests in a way that normal monsters outside of street zones. So like monsters in mazes, they can't straight up talk to a guest, and squad leaders can, and we can get away with it because we're in character. We kind of develop our own unique personality throughout the run of the season, and we do that by way of interaction between both the zombies, the monsters, and the guests as well.
Any zombie that's worked Camp Snoopy is when you got shot at, fell to the ground. You got killed. You were laying on the ground, and you get up, reset. And the militia, it was a little different because you had the guests going through. You just had to go through. They're shooting at anything and everything that was moving. But what was nice is that I didn't have to fall down and die. So I just got crazy, which gave me my haunt name, Mad Dog.
I remember Jon Cooke and Jon Asperin, because they were the ones who did my paperwork. They were like, Jon Asperin was like, oh yeah, by the way, I hope you're okay with falling down on the floor. It's like, oh yeah. And then Jon Cooke's like, are you sure? Because you've been getting up a lot and falling down a lot. Yeah, that's fine. I used to be a goalkeeper. So, I mean, it was kind of funny.
I thought it would be really fun to play with the idea that I was the last person to be infected in Calico City. Going off of that ended with like the evolution of how my makeup ended up looking, which turned out really cool because it was almost like every week it was totally different. It started out with a prosthetic, and then it gradually got to 2D makeup where there was a bite somewhere on my face because I was, like I said, the last person to be infected. And that would kind of, in my opinion, enhance my mannerisms because I would still act human-like. So I would bounce between ideas of, okay, let's play around with being kind of victim-esque and ask people to help you in a really gravelly, like, mutated voice, like I'm turning, but I want to be saved because I don't want to die.
I came up with the thought that I was this lady in the town who was probably some kind of crazy cat lady type of person, and she wound up getting infected because she got stuck out on the streets outside because of the helicopter crashing on the street and just chilling there. She couldn't get back home, and so she went into the phone booth that is on that street, and she got stuck in the phone booth because a bunch of zombies attacked her and she couldn't get out. And then she became crazy cat lady zombie with a really dumb cow skirt and everything else and wild hair that that I got clowned for, but it became the character.
Being a zombie is the most tiring thing you could possibly do. You have to take shots. You have to lay down, get up, go at it again. Sip a little bit of water and keep doing it all night. You're pretty much doing burpees and pop blocking at the same time. It is intense. And if anything, I have more respect for the zombies than anyone else in our maze because they are the backbone and they made everything work beautifully. The train really messed with me mentally because it's a lot smaller, and they did make it so it went thinner as it wouldn't, like a perspective shot. Not by a lot, however, it was enough to make you uncomfortable. So I thought that was rad.
And then the subway is the one that freaked me out the most. I did not like the subway. Even though I knew those lights flickered on and off, like, I know that was like part of it, but it still freaked me out because you don't know who's going to be walking through that curtain.
The subway. I mean, I was blown away by the subway. Just how realistic that felt going through. I mean, I just thought it was really cool. If anything, before the night would start, just kind of I'd like to walk through the maze where it's pretty much completely empty. And going through the subway, it was always just an eerie feeling, if anything.
You're in a subway, and to think that a zombie outbreak could happen, might not happen there, and then to see it like as scenery, and then putting scare actors in there, and it's just like, I don't know where you're gonna pop out from. I don't know if I want to even walk through.
Honestly, even though I was in Alpha and I loved running around and causing havoc in that area, I loved the Metro because of how well they put it together. Like, it just blew my mind, because walking through it, even as a guest, and even with the lights on, it still creeps me out to think about how it looks with the full show going, because I'm somebody that really doesn't like tight, cramped spaces, especially going through a maze, even though it's a controlled environment. It really freaked me out, especially having the flashing lights and all of the noise, and not fully knowing where to expect a zombie to come from, because that was the thing that I was like, oh, I should know where they're going to come from, because I never scared in Metro, but I knew it wasn't as accessible as like Bravo or Alpha, where there can be like easier movement or like free roaming. You could pop out of a window, but just not having a basic understanding of where they could come from, even as somebody that worked there, it really freaked me out.
My favorite room personally would be the train cars. The strobe lights, train 2, train 3, where it's like train 1, you still got that little bit of destruction, but you hit like train 2 and it's like zombies are coming in from both sides. And then train 3, where it's just complete chaos, the train is crashed and you're jumping out the back of it. Those, like, that little section, and then the front half. I've always been a sucker of the metro station, because my favorite zombie, any scene in any zombie movie, anything, is the metro station from Left 4 Dead. There's something about coming through those air vents and going down those stairs, and then it's like you go into the metro station. Stuff's like not running, and then you go through that train that's all broken. That whole scene is just, it just Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, the first year we built the guns, and it was what we did. We took the airsoft guns, we gutted them, and we put in laser tag components. So that way, all because I just wanted it to feel like you're pulling the trigger and actually feeling something. So you're feeling the airsoft engine or motor in it. And then those things were a nightmare, and that was another thing. I went to Laura at the time. I was like, we have to, if we want to keep pushing infected, we need to switch to a more sound system that charges faster, that are readily available to get more when they break, all that stuff. And luckily, she was able to figure it out. We purchased that new system. And then I think we purchased more after that. So then I think at the end of it, we had 150 guns or whatever, and that was able to kind of keep up with the cycle.
This is the laser tag Battle Rifle Pro. One of the things about the equipment, why we went with this, is it has a short barrel. I mean, if you just look at the chassis, if you just look at the whole entire shape of it, it doesn't have a long barrel. It's small, it's compact, and it's something that not only a full-size adult could use, but someone that's smaller, who we're aiming for, which is the kids. Kids were, and the crazy thing is that we knew what our target demographic was. It was the gamers, and it was the teenagers, it was the young adults. So it was the people it was the little ones that were growing up in the world of Call of Duty. And we knew that this was going to be something that they loved. And so we loved the fact that Battle Company had a gun that was small enough and light enough for a kid to use. But the great thing about it, too, was that it had a lot of elements to it that would lend itself to something that the kids and those gamers could relate to, which was the whole gaming experience. And so the technology in here allowed specific things like upgrading your weapons. It had a nice little rumble box in there to give it a little recoil to every time you pull the trigger, all the way down to, just a heads-up display to let you know how you're doing, which is this little display right over here. It also allowed the opportunity for guests to really, step forward and make it realistic by utilizing the little, the reload button on here that can also be used for different types of functions. But it also had a rail system too, so that, you know, in this one you could see that it has a little red dot attached to it. But you can attach all sorts of cool stuff with it. But then, you know, it was durable. It was the best thing, and still the best, you know, piece of equipment on the market. So a shout out to my boy Brian at Battle Company. He's an incredible guy, and the rest of, you know, all the people over there that have been providing support for us for years. But yeah, this is it. And so we ended up using this as part of our reintroduction of Infected after year 1. I really wanted to try to unify, and we've done it before in the past, but you know, I really wanted to take a crack at try to unify mazes and stuff like that, like a shared universe. And this is, you know, something that I thought was really cool because there's a lot of incredible original properties that Scary Farm is known for creating, and you know, we didn't have the luxury of having IPs to work off on and using their creative marketing engine to bring in all these cool concepts and movie set pieces. We wanted to, you know, the majority of our stuff, if not, especially now, is all of it is all homegrown original concepts and ideas. So, you know, it was my attempt to try to sort of do a callback to Calico, you know. So we ended up and a lot of people didn't know, not even some of our you know, not even Ken Parks, who's our vice president of entertainment at the time, you know, when he started, knew about that, you know, but we were deep in on the Easter eggs. And when he found out, and Eric found out, Eric Nix, who's our producer for Scary Farm and special events, you know, when they found out, they're like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that, you know. And, you know, it was one of those things to where it was just like some fan service. We were just a bunch of fans, just, you know, having an opportunity to just say, you know what, let's take it over to, you know, bring it over to this next city further down the stream, which is the modern day Calico City.
But another thing that took so long about Infected, because it's not like any normal maze where it just doesn't have walls, we had to hide all our cables that run along the outside. So like one thing that's like special about it that not a lot of people noticed was the way that we hide the cables with some of the props and stuff like that. So a lot of it would be like prop cables hanging down to distract you on a real cable that actually ran up the wall up to code, but it looked all prop cable because, you know, all the other ones are frayed, but that one's perfectly all tacked down and everything. So
what we ended up doing was having our Easter eggs having throwbacks or hints of other existing properties that are within the Scary Farm stable. You know, one of the more obvious ones was Paranormal. The Paranormal billboard that you saw on Alpha Street in the same universe as Scary Farm, but we actually took it a step further, because if you look at the actual sanitarium that Paranormal takes place, it's called Hayden Sanitarium, right? Well, if you look inside Infected subway area, look at all the signage, every single signage in there, it talks about the Metro line, right? It talks about a certain Metro line. Well, the name of the Metro line is Hayden.
The graffiti changed every year. Not a lot of people noticed it. I mean, I don't hold it against them because it is a lot of fast-paced movement. However, not a lot of people saw the differences. So there was like one year there was a rat. The next year the rat had a piece of cheese. The next year there was a cat that killed the rat. But it's like in a dark corner, you couldn't see it. But every year the art and the posters, everything got dilapidated or painted over so you can see something different.
How do I feel about the meatpacking house? I love it. And every single year he's wanted it. That's why year 2, when you went into the cave, they had all those slabs of meat. That was supposed to be our meat locker, but we couldn't put air conditioning in there because, you know, it's a cave. But there's no power or any way to hang air conditioning units in there. So when he eventually got it, because he pitched it every single year that it was there, and he eventually got it the last year. Oh, there's so many things that he he made fun of me in the sense of all the jokes that I know of him over the past couple of years are just sprinkled inside of that warehouse. Starting with the name. Howe's Meatpacking Company. Serving Calico City since 1992. Thanks, John. That's my birth year.
When you go inside the subway, once you get past the turnstile, you have these signs in the left and right hand walls, right? You have one subway sign that says the initials MRC, which is very similar to what you would see and of different types of lines you would see over, say, in New York, right? Well, MRC, it also had some numbers, right? Which were the line numbers of these metro lanes. And MRC, I mean, this is silly, but MRC, it's silly in the sense that we went that extent to that far, but not silly because, you know, kids to John and I are everything. That's why we do it. You know, we're kids ourselves, right? But MRC is the initials of Mason, who was his son. And the numbers is the weight, how much he weighed when he was born. Okay, you know, you look at like some of the signs, like the streets and stuff like that, you'll see a whole bunch of our fallen squad leaders, our former squad leaders and their names.
The Mystery Lodge River, Bigfoot Rapids, that's the river to Calico City, the modern day Calico City. So the last year, that's why John, the last year when they were doing their rehab, it's like, don't go to the department store, stay away from the water, go to the left.
And if you look closely, there's actually, when you go into when you get divided into the two freezers, it's one sign, which is my favorite Easter egg of all time in Infected. There's a freezer sign that just talks about all the, you know, rules and regulations of proper food handling and things like that, and it also talks about just regular maintenance of these freezers. But it's in the middle of where the pathway splits up, right, where it divides the guests up into two groups. But in there, it just allowed us to really get literal and say thank you. And so there's this paragraph that says thank you to all the people that played a huge, if they thought it was a small part, it really was a big part in this whole, you know, fun thing called Infected. And I, you know, really try to have an opportunity to say thank you without taking and pulling away from the integrity of the design, you know. But yeah, that had to been my favorite one because its part is, you know, when you look at it from afar, the signage itself just looks like a regular sign that you would normally see in a walk-in freezer. But in there, that whole thing, it was like a big, huge thank you to everyone involved, and of course the talent too, because a lot of times, you know, you get a lot of people that that you think might be that really lay low or like low key, but they have no idea how much of a big chapter they wrote in our history books. You know, even from, you know, our talent and the people that are just the real stars of Infected don't get necessarily that light, that spotlight. And so I wanted to make sure, at least try my best to say thank you to them. And so that was my favorite Easter egg.
Yeah, that desk, I think that desk, the you know, the mobile desk with all the screens, I think that was the first thing I ever designed at Knott ever, was that stupid desk. And then I designed it and they built it and I'm like, oh shit, that thing's big. I don't know if it's going to fit in the door, but luckily it did.
So in 2018, there was a night of haunt that it rained really, really hard. I think it ended up flooding the sound booth at least twice. And either the Metro or Bravo or somewhere, like, it flooded, and their solution was to brush it, like push the water out, and then it ended up flooding other parts of the maze. So it was just a mess of a night. And keep in mind, for those people who aren't aware or never looked up walking through the maze, a really large majority of Infected is not covered. So I know the night that it rained on Alpha, one of the cityscapes, like, it was a side of a building and it had the smallest awning. I would go and stand under it and just kind of wait there and be like, okay, maybe it'll get better. It never got better. And they kept us trudging through. It was a lot of fun to work in the rain until they made us stop, and then your body kind of got cold and then you had to like re-warm it up again. That was the worst. But the funniest part of that night, I remember telling I think I was the only girl in that area, which made it really funny because I was like, oh, my brothers. So I went up to all of my brothers and I was like, hey, get in the porta potty. And I think we ended up fitting 6 or 7 people in the porta potty.
I had a group. They were coming through. The girl that was in the front of her group with her friends merged into the back of the group that was in front of them. And she started following that group, so she didn't notice that her friends had all gotten stopped for their little debrief at the box truck. And she was already at the ramp about to go into the metro, and she realized, like, wait, I don't know these people. And she turned around and her friends were still at the truck. So she kind of looked at all the zombies. We're looking at her like, what are you going to do? Are you going to try to go back? Or are you going to keep going? And she tries to go back. And the other zombies were kind of like, do we get her? And I'm sitting there in the phone booth and I'm watching her and nobody else is getting her. And I just think, yeah, we get her. And like, I swung out of the phone booth and like screamed at her and there was still space between us so I could still run at her, and I just chased her right back up the ramp. She was not seeing her friends again for the rest of that maze. I was like, no, you're in that group now. You didn't pay attention. You're gonna keep going. You are by yourself now. Run. she off into the metro. I could hear her friends behind me saying, oh no, they got her. She's wait, come back. Like, so funny. Like, they noticed that she was getting ahead and they're like, oh well, there she goes. Like, she's on her own now. They chased her out.
Get on the radio like, hey, we need to hold a group up at militia. So militia would pull the barriers and kind of block the path as the group would come by. And one of the militia guys would actually tie me. Well, no, actually, he would tie me to one of the barriers behind the group. So you have the group here, the barrier in front, and the barrier in the back. And as I was tied up to the barrier, I would kind of just try to lunge at the guests and reach, and they're kind of just looking like, hey, hey, look at this guy. He's trying to get us, but he's tied up and can't move or anything. And I would listen to when that group is getting ready to go. And as soon as they start going, I gave it my all to just start running towards the guests while that barrier is just dragging behind me. And just some of the reactions to these people, they're just, oh shit, because they weren't expecting that, to see this zombie coming towards them all tied up and having one of those big ass white barriers dragging behind him as fast as I could, as hard as I could pull. You had that thing dragging behind, and it was loud. So, you know, that added a nice effect.
Every once in a while, you know, if you're a talent that's working at Knott's, you're able to have like an hour or so to volunteer your time in a maze. So Allison put on boardwalk clown costume, and I'm deathly afraid of clowns. She knows this. And I had to run a VIP group through. So I ran a VIP group all the way through. We went to Mama Pasta's. And I didn't see a zombie, so I was like, oh, I guess they're all on break. I'm like, check your corners, so on and so forth, cut the pie. And then I feel someone touch me. And I was like, oh my God. And it was a slow horror movie turn. And I see this girl with pigtails and a clown mask on. And she did a giggle. And I was like, needless to say, I lost my shit. And I was like, no! Booked it down the hallway. And I was like, everyone get out! Go past the van! Get out of there right now! And then she walks out like, ooh, hi Paulina. And then clicks back. And I was like, why would you do that to me? I had no idea who it was until my lunch. And then she came out and she's like, hey, what's up, dude? And I'm like, fuck you. Like, are you serious? Petrified. Terrified. I thought I was gonna die. No! I hate clowns so much. She terrified me.
There was one night that was really, I'll put it in air quotes, slow. There was one traffic cone. I don't think both of them had it, but there was one that had a little like rectangular slit in it. And I was like, I wonder why that's there. And then I thought about it more and more. Oh, it would be a really funny idea to sit under this cone and just hide under it. So I waited in the corner. So I was right by Mama Pasta's in front of the barricade. And I was under this cone waiting for the squad leader to walk up. And then I tried my hardest to just kind of scoot forward and just make enough movement that it freaked somebody out. And it worked pretty well. If it didn't startle a guest, it sure startled the squad leader, so.
I was stationed at Bravo Point, which, if you don't know, is right by the blue truck, right by the downed helicopter with our dead pilot Maverick in it. Now, Maverick is a dummy who is bolted to the seat of the helicopter, who has on his aviator's helmet like this, and like his head is down. No way you can check his pulse, right? But I'm at Bravo, and I want to do a special mission, and I want to make this mission the most special mission that it can be. So I see this group. They're coming. Like, hey, you, I need your help. Special mission. Will you help me? Yeah, sure. What's up? Have the guy check Maverick's pulse. He sticks his fingers in there. He's like, I don't feel anything. I'm like, start compressions now. I don't know what came over him, but he starts his chest compression. So 10 minutes has gone by. I'm holding my fingers to his neck, and he's still giving chest compressions. This guy was amazing. He did not want Maverick to die. And I could sense this. So I tell him, I think I feel something. Pump harder. So he starts getting his entire body into it and just going at the dummy. And I go, I feel something. I feel it. I can feel the blood. It's coming up through it. Like, I feel it. Keep going. So he's giving it all he's got, just trying to save Maverick's life. And Cody runs up and he goes, he's gone, get out of here. And I turn and yell at Cody. I'm like, no, we're going to save this man's life. And Cody and I have a little back and forth. And finally Cody pulls me off the helicopter, shakes me and goes, he's dead, don't worry about it, he's gone. And he yells to the guy, go on, get out of here. So as soon as the guy turns the corner, Cody starts laughing and goes, Vince, come with me. And I go, oh man, I really enjoyed my time here at Knott's. I was only here for about 4 weeks, but I think I made the most of it. So we're walking out of the maze, and the second we step out, a call comes over the radio. And it's our other cast lead, Greg. And all we hear is, guys, we have a missing male in the maze.
Some of the people, they were terrifying. And of course, we had our own special code browns on every single night where people were so scared just out of Alpha Streets that we had to take them out of the maze. I have to get out. I've soiled myself.
The first time a Mystery Lodge, first group that ever went through, they ran to the front. He got in first with his group. They went through. KTLA was waiting at the end of the maze with cameras rolling to get the first people on camera. Jon was inside the maze, making sure that everything was running smooth. I ran to the exit. Jon even told me, it's like, hey, go do this. And I'm like, okay. And I ran to the exit just to see the first person's response, to see if, like, the same way that I feel about the situation. The dude comes out, looks the person dead into the camera, and the chick asks him, how did you feel about infected? He looks at his friends, looks at the camera, and goes, it was fucking awesome! And I remember the chick going, cut, because they're alive. And I was standing right there behind the camera girl. Like, I watched the whole thing happen. Like, at the end of, like, the thing. You know what I'm talking about when you start to go down the hill where, like, later, which we got the projection. I was standing right there as he was walking down. And I remember the guy giving me a high five and going, "Fuck yeah!"
Final words for Infected, is just, thank you to everyone that was a part of it, and then for the haunt community to be open-minded about it. It was very unorthodox. It was something very different, and it was, something very risky and challenging. And for the people at Knott that believed in this concept, they allowed us to bring a concept that, remember, started off with something so innocent. It was just people shooting people with paintballs, and airsoft BBs. It was something as crazy as that sounds. They saw the value in it, and they allowed it to reach a level into a larger audience that helped change the haunt game. I can't be super thankful enough and humbled to know that it really took a large group of people to make it happen. And for those that had an opportunity to experience Infected, thank you for the smiles and for the awesome feedback, because we totally appreciate it. The talent in there, just some of the hardest working talent you will ever see work any kind of event, any kind of maze, and knowing that your smiles really made them continue on was the motivation that they needed, and it made it fun for us. And so, we're super thankful.
Looking back on it now and seeing what it became and what it can be in the future, it's like watching my baby grow up.
And I always said on the first day, regardless if you quit tomorrow or not, as long as you're there for one day, you're technically infected.
Working Infected, it took me to a level that I didn't expect. I thought, oh, okay, we'll go do this and stuff. And you bond with your castmates and you bounce off each other. And it was, a great time.
If you get scared or if you're in a bad mood or whatever, you're coming out of that thing smiling, having a good time, probably sweating, so it's just a fun experience. And the zombies do a great job. Like, that's a tough one, just pretending to get shot over and over and over again, a bajillion times a night. And then the squad leaders, even though they're the human-based characters, like, to me, they're the ones that are always adding that intensity throughout that experience and keeping people on their toes and keeping things moving. And watching, as Infected went on, I was able to kind of step away to focus on other mazes a little bit more, but coming back and like stepping into it and watching Jon Asperin up above on the radio coordinating with all the squad leaders, it's like, holy crap, man. Like, people probably don't even realize like how intense of an operation that maze truly is. And that's why it's one of those things, like, I know other events and other theme parks have tried to do it, but it takes a really dedicated team and dedicated crew to make that one happen.
There's two mottos that we had in Infected. One of them was headshots only, which we would say every night, and it gets you motivated and it gives you that cohesive feeling. But another one was, you can't squad with us. And as elitist as that sounds, it's true. Once you're part of the Infected tribe, you become family. And for that 6 weeks, you are there thick and thin, and you make friendships that last beyond the 6 weeks that you work for Scary Farm. You maintain these friendships for the rest of your life. And I think it's important to realize that no matter what kind of day you have in Infected, there's always someone there to pick you back up and motivate you and say, I want you here. You can do this. You're a family. And once you're infected, you're always infected.
It's completely true that Infected is definitely a family. The camaraderie that Infected has is, it can't be explained unless you work it. It really can't.
The last run is like the last memory, and it was just like perfect. The whole, like you said, is over a decade, just all into one. plus there was like sprinkles of people that were there from the past, and like conquering like everything, all the things that like this isn't gonna work, you guys can't do this, you know, like just accomplishing everything and being like top tier, like we bad at the end of it. Like you can't help but celebrate, you know. It's winning the championship and you can't help but smile.
Yeah, man. Headshots and headshots only. Hold on one sec. Katie, can you turn down your Fortnite? Sorry. That's what's up. It's stuff like this that's the inspiration. It's really it's moments like that is the inspiration, is you know, what people really have fun with, you know. I mean, my kid's like 3 feet away from the TV. Kaden, you have to back up from the TV, son. Dude, that was me when I was his age. So the question is where do you get inspiration from? It's moments like that.
So I did a lot of the monsters over those couple of years that I was there. So all the annoying voices, and I don't even remember what I was yelling, but I just started yelling random things, and then Dan put it backwards. So I think if you grabbed it and reversed it, it might say something, or it's just random noises, which is probably more likely. But
because, you know, we always have our group chats and meetings. First year of Mystery Lodge, boop. Lights go on, fogs go on, noise goes on, so on and so forth. I remember standing there thinking, that's the best way I can describe it. Just another year. Yeah, just like, it's like, oh god damn.
Oh, guaranteed. I will remember that. I'll tell my grandkids. KTLA didn't play it. And they'll be like, yeah, whatever, granddad, with your stories.
Yeah. My genuine initial reaction with full show, I'm sure just like everybody else, was, why is this place so freaking loud? That is not necessary.
Like, the volume of the music was the volume of all the directors running through hyping us up at Scare School. It had the same vibe because they were cheering us on and everything when they came through, and the music kind of had the same energy as that.
So we would always kind of like warm up a little bit and stretch out and just try to get ready for whatever kind of day we were gonna have, because it was always a gamble. But we never knew when the sound was coming on, and when it did, it was always just like, just why are you so loud all the time?
Wow, dude, were you like a powerhouse by the end of it?
Yeah, I wish. I had probably 3 of them where they came up to tell me, and before they could say it, I already knew because I smelt it before they could say it.
So as a squad leader, you get to be immersed in that world and you get to help the guests come into that world. Can I start over? Because I have no idea where I'm going right now.
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, no worries. You're totally good. When you started...
I remember me and my best friend Camille, we started off as zombies, and we're like, man, this sucks for a moment, because we kept having to fall down a lot, but then we were like, not that it sucked, it was just more like, oh my gosh, is there something more we can do? And then we realized that same year, a lot of squad leaders dropped, and there was only one squad leader that was a girl that stayed, and that was Paulina. And me and Camille were like, damn, she's a badass. I want to be just like her.